you doing today, Heather?
I'm fine. How are you, Dan?
Doing pretty good. You're fine, specifically fine. I'm curious to know why that.
I am peachy. I am amazing. I'm happy to
Okay.
be.
Very good. Any description is good as long as it sounds somewhat positive. But I'm really excited to meet with you because I know that you've published quite a few books, haven't you?
Yes, I have 12 published novels, and then I also have a children's book, and that's going to be extended into a little series.
How cool is that children's book already published or you're working on it?
So the children's book is already published. It was more of an altruistic project that I had started, and I didn't expect it to do as well as it does. So I'm actually revamping all the illustrations. So the book's still published, but currently it's with my designer right now, and she's doing new illustrations for it. So that way I can have the same illustrator for more books in the series. But yeah,
That's way cool.
but it's for military kids. I think I told you my husband. Well, I'm prior Navy, prior service, and my husband's active duty Navy. So it's for military kids whose dads deploy. So I'm doing a mom's deploy book on top of that, plus some other little, military children specific books, I guess.
That is awesome. I'll have to take a look at those. I didn't see those when I was looking through your book list, but I don't know if that's on Amazon. Maybe I just wasn't looking in the right place.
It is. It's way buried back there because it was a couple of years ago I did that one. But
The problem of when you have so many books that your other books get buried, right? It's a good problem to have.
a lot of books.
So how long have you been working as an author, or where are you in your author career, so to speak?
By the way, I loved it when you gave that question earlier and the prompt, like maybe I will be asking this. And I'm like, when I saw the first one, I was like, what is it? Well, okay, hold on. That's got a lot of answers to it.
Any answer you choose.
Well, all right. I think that kind of depends on I don't know, like what do we define an author as? Because that was my one thing. I was like, what are
Yeah,
we talking
that's a good point.
finances? Are we talking so, I mean, publishing, honestly, I don't even know why I started doing this. I randomly went to a petting zoo in like the Temecula, it's Southern California. And it was the coolest petting zoo. They had, so she would rescue animals from like Disney shows and stuff that were like a llama and a can that kissed you, and so she kind of had them on her farm, and it was a really cute thing. And I was like, this would be a very cute children's story. So I wrote a book specifically for her farm, and then I did it on Create Space, and then had she sold it specifically at the farm. It was, it wasn't online or anything like that. And then or on Amazon. And then I wrote a military children's book. And then in 2019, I had a crazy pregnancy dream about it's just a story idea. And I woke up, my husband awake at 2 a.m. I was like, babe, what if these kids were locked in a bunker at the end of the world? He was like, seriously, go back to bed. And I'm like, I'm gonna write this book. So then I wrote a book, and that was my one. I'm like, okay, I wrote a novel, I'm done. And everybody wanted the next book because I didn't realize how bad I am with cliffhangers, because I thought it was like enough for the imagination. But yeah, so everybody wanted the next one, and then the next one, and then 12 books later, here we are. And those are all different series now. I just couldn't stop writing. Now I've got the bug. But
That
yeah, so
is awesome.
2019, I've been writing. Where am I at in my author career? I kind of, about late 2019, I told my husband, I said, because I was pregnant, like about to give birth. And so I was like, listen, for the next 5 years, we know I'm staying at home. So I want a 5-year career plan. And I'm going to build a backlist for 2 to 3 years. And after 2 to 3 years, I'm going to learn paid marketing. And then after that, like when we hit 5 years, as long as I'm making 30K a year, I can kind of sit down and say like, okay, I can now develop like full-time thought to this while the kids are in school. So like as long as I'm making by that point. So that was my original goal. And I made 5K my first year. I made 10K this year. So as long as I make 15K next year, and then 25K to 20K the following year, 25, I'll be kind of at that goal where I wanted. So that's why I was telling you about paid marketing. I was like, okay, so this year is the year that I sit down and learn paid marketing. I built my platform, built my book list up. So I kind of knew what I was doing. And I'm only working 2 to 3 hours a day. So it's not like I'm investing that much time into it yet. Yeah. So like I'm somewhere in between, like this is going to be a full-time gig, and you did the groundwork for the past 2 years, if that makes sense. Like, and I knew I'm really good at big goals. So
that is awesome.
In the middle of a giant bubble of goals in my author career.
Well, I mean, I think being an author myself, I understand the whole big bubble of goals. It's just like, because there's so many aspects of publishing. You're an independent publisher, correct? I forgot to clarify that. You've been publishing independently.
I did. It was funny because I like, if people will ask me like, did you ever try to go traditional? And I never, like, I looked at it from the beginning as a small business, and I knew what it
Hmm.
would take to like build up to this point. So I was like, okay, I just want to do that. I didn't
Hmm.
think to quit or anything like that. 'Cause I don't know. I like control of my works.
That is, I totally agree. I queried like two agents, I think, just because I was like, when I was writing or I had finished my first book and didn't hear any responses. Actually, I think one of them said that they were closed for submissions, and they hadn't updated their website. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I know that if I were to get a traditional publisher, I wouldn't like losing any control of my rights, and I just don't want to do that. I want to have complete control so that I own this business, like you said, the small business. I want it to be mine.
Yeah. No, and like a lot of people I think get caught up too in the whole idea of like what it means. Like it's almost like a badge of honor, like
Mhm.
the way. And I think a lot of that stemmed from about 2013, which is a time that we both missed, like with the big, they call it the gold rush of the indie author books and stuff like that, when Amazon really put a viable platform out for indie authors. And in 2013, there was a big major shift with my cat is going crazy and my child is up. Go to bed. No,
Hey, you did say that you probably would get out.
hold on, I will help you. So in 2013, that big shift, I think you saw a lot of like media push onto indie authors because they were like, oh, like these are garbage books. And that was a big thing. And so basically traditional publishing houses felt threatened. So there's kind of, since this started, there's been a divide. And so a lot of people are like, well, we want that badge of honor traditionally published. But I've talked to multiple traditionally published authors from the past, like since the 1980s. And, they maybe got a one-time advancement of 5K or they had to do their own marketing. They've never, it was never like it's not unless you get like a movie deal or you're JK Rowling or whatever, like you're not gonna make a lot of
Mhm.
money efficiently. So like that
Yep.
was the small business control. I control X amount of revenue going out and then how much I'm getting in. Like as long as I'm working, like I'm fine with that. So that it just made more sense to me.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And that I thought exactly along the same lines as there's this weird stigma of if you get traditional publishing that or a traditional deal, you automatically sell tons and tons of books or you get an advance. And it's just like, well, actually, no, I've heard of a lot of people who go with traditional and they don't really have a lot of control and they don't have the publisher doesn't have a great marketing plan. So you just have to pick and choose. And there's obviously you can be successful with either one. You just have to be thoughtful in your decision. But I'm grateful so far, at least, that I've gone independent. It seems like you're grateful as well. It seems like it's working out well for you so far.
No, I do. I love it. Like it was the control aspect is one of it. The creative control, like I kind of get to do what I want. And it's I make a joke always that like I don't leave my manuscript resting in a drawer or collecting dust in a drawer. I let the readers decide if they hate it or not. You got to have thick skin in this. Obviously, that's one of the big
Yeah.
things. Like I get just enough hate as I get love. Well, I get more love than hate. That's how I tell books are doing good. But when like you get the hate and then it just happens, you roll with it. But that's what comes from taking creative chances instead of having somebody dictate like this is not what the market wants. But even like they don't even know what the market wants at the time. So I don't know.
Well, I think the market has gotten so big that there's probably a market for pretty much anything. Whether or not it's the biggest market doesn't really matter. There's a market for everything. And that's just, the growing population, the availability of books, the digital age where you can get books to people all over the world. It's just you can reach more readers, which means there's a bigger group of markets, which I think is amazing, especially for indie authors who write a whole bunch of wonky stuff. Let's just call it that. There's some really creative, non-normal genre books out there from independent authors, and it works because there is a niche for that. There's people to read it.
Yeah, no, for real. And then,
Which is
well,
excellent.
oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying it's just excellent.
Oh no, it is. And well, that's the other thing too is when we talk about like niches and stuff like that, it's like, I mean, Ice Planet Barbarians, like who, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No touch that, but then all of these people are upset. Who knew that was a thing? Like people really like that. So, and like and that was what I said, like too. I was like, I really don't want the canon, like like the metaphorical canon, the old prestigious collegiate league deciding what is art anymore. Because I'm like in my mind, I don't know if like I obviously I write dystopian post-apocalyptic. I like to challenge the government like in my work. So
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, I'm like seeing this collegiate body deciding what is popular, what is on point. And I'm like, I prefer to just like decide, like let readers decide. So I tried it, like it was almost like we're cutting out that governing force, like, and saying like, hey, do you like this? Like, and then we're testing it and we're giving people more product to do, like more books to develop, more stories and stuff, and that they wouldn't get otherwise. So I don't know. I don't see an issue with it at all. I like being indie. I'm a proud indie.
As am I. Totally proud of it. But one thing that did strike me when I was looking at the books that you've published already is how quickly you've been able to publish. I mean, it's hard not to notice that. I'm an indie author. I've got a lot of things going on. So, I wish that I could write more. Unfortunately, it just doesn't fit into my current circumstances because of all the things that I have. But I'm really interested. So how many books did you publish last year alone?
Last year I published 5, and the year before I published 5.
Okay. So wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
So real quick. So I the only way to describe this is if we jump into rapid release and like kind of talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. Because I know you had mentioned like wanting to know about rapid release itself. So rapid release, depending on the theory that you're following, which for the most part, what it does is it takes advantage of Amazon's 30-day window, is what we call it. So it's a 30-day cliff before a book drops off the Amazon chart, so they stop promoting it. So the theory behind that is to publish once every 30 days. And a lot of people will stockpile books to like do that. So that was something I don't want to say lucky, but I didn't, a lot of authors came into a creative block during COVID last year. And when I like internalize, or when I'm going into something, I just like kind of internalize. So it was good for me for writing. And I was able to stockpile 3 books to rapid release in 2020, which was my No Carry series, the Haunting Dystopian Tale series, my weird non-genre specific series. Love that series. It's so good. Anyway, so I actually stockpiled. I wrote the entire 2 books and released them 25 days apart. So then my 3rd book was written by then or whatever. So that's rapid release. It's like every 25 days or whatever, 28 days. I didn't find that did anything special for me per se, because I have enough of a following then that it would have mattered. But if you had a huge following and if I was running paid advertising, I think it would have been better. So when we talk about rapid release, that's what most people will say. Okay, rapid release is every 28 days. I actually release every 2 to 3 months. So that's not considered rapid, actually. Okay. But I know for some people, like every 2 to 3 months is kind of like, oh crap, how are you doing that? I will say that my books are at 50K words each. So, and I write very fast paced stories, like, because that's where my natural ending's at. So I'm also able to like get more books out in a year than maybe your traditional or like author. I could do it faster and I actually could do more, but like I said, I'm only working about 2 hours a day, so it's not enough. Like, and it's really, when I say 2 hours a day, an hour, that might be social media. So like I can write about 2,000 words an hour, like, and I handwrite everything.
You handwrite? Okay, that's amazing. I'm just even more impressed with your writing possibility. I can't even imagine handwriting a story.
Well, it was funny because I actually made a TikTok video about this earlier today. So I still have the notebooks out from like all my books, but like I write them all, and they about 350 words a page, and I can write about 5 pages in an hour, like give or take, if I'm really on a roll. Yeah, I think, anyway, sorry, we can talk about writing and stuff later, but so for the releasing schedule, it's just, with me, I feel like because I don't run paid advertising, it's a lot easier, especially because I end with cliffhangers. Like it's a lot easier to stay in a reader's mind because like you're a reader too. Like I read so many books a week, it's not funny. So when it like, if something ends on a cliffhanger, like trying to remember what it is. So like, that was my one thing. It was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to like consistently put out a schedule that your readers can expect. So they want 3 months, and then they still remember what happened in the last story, and stuff like that. So that was what I had said. Next year, I might slow down and just put out 3, or this year, I think I'm just putting out 3 books.
just 3 books. No, I think that's amazing. I mean, every author, and this is what I've learned, every author has their own capabilities and schedule when it comes to book releases. So personally, for me, publishing 5 books a year would be amazing. That's not something I've done. The most I've done is 2, which is great. Then again, the books that I've written, the shortest one I've written is 95,000 words. The longest one is about 155,000. So it makes sense, right? If you broke those up into 3 books, then it could work.
4 books that year. Like if you did 295
Yeah.
or 200, put out 4 books.
Yep.
And but the reason why I did it, because I'm also writing, my first books were very YA, like written for 13 to 16. My later books have been a little bit older, but it's just my readers are already used to my style and like my like word count, like my, like, so that's a little different. But I mean, I know a lot of prolific authors that actually write the same amount that I do. Like one of my favorite authors, she puts out a 50K book, a 50K word book a month, like, and that's, her readers happy. She supports her family based on that. So it was kind of like, okay, I know what we're doing. And it's funny because it's like the only complaint I really get on my books is everyone's like, I just wish it was longer. And I'm like, that is a good complaint to have. So
Yeah, seriously.
right. But yeah, and the thing is, like, I know, and so when I say 2 to 3 hours a day or something like that, like I really like, I sometimes it was like an hour, and I know if I wrote 2 hours a day, I can double my word count. So it's not a huge thing. It's just right now with the littles, it's finding the time. But that's what I said. My overall goal was to when they were in school. Now it's, like a serious business instead of just putting the books out. Like, but rapid release really does work for a lot of people. And that's the thing, is that it keeps readers engaged, especially as an indie, like an unknown indie. You're not James Patterson. People aren't going to wait a year or 2 years for your next release. And that was my one thing. I think my biggest lesson when I first started out that really stuck with me was, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said that authors really think that they stick in readers' minds a lot longer than they do. And so that really stuck with me, because it's like you put your heart and soul into something and you think that a reader like will love you forever. I have some of the best readers ever that like have stuck with me through every series. Like I'm an instant buy for them and stuff. But for the most part, people read one of my series, they love it, and then they move on. They'll never see me again. Just, so that was like a big thing. And so it's like, if you're constantly producing content, especially as an indie without paid advertising, without, marketing and stuff, so they're seeing your ads and stuff, you stay in their mind, if that makes sense. Like, so that's why rapid release works. And I know it works. It's not for everybody.
Yep. Absolutely. It hasn't been for me yet. Maybe someday if I write shorter books. But I mean, I'm curious to know, has there been any specific challenges, setting aside the rapid release, because that is a different, thank you for clarifying that. That is somewhat confusing for people who might be listening. But even just publishing, 5 books a year, as opposed to say like 1 or 2, did you find that it was challenging to kind of juggle the process of writing, editing, formatting, publishing over multiple books? Or did you really only work on 1 book at a time to publishing, or did you like juggle multiple projects?
Okay, so remember, so I say I handwrite like from start to finish.
Right.
I also have a degree in, this is the hard part too, because it's like, I never want to like tell other authors to do this, but I have a degree in English and I also edit other people's books. So like very clean for me when I type. Like I don't write anything other than a proofreader. And even that is just to catch like I missed a comma or I missed a exclamation point or something, like whatever. So it's kind of, so basically I'll goof around and I'll write for like 3 weeks and I've got an entire story done. And then I sit down for a week, and it's that week straight I actually do work. Like we call it locked in the cave, where daddy's got to take over and mommy's and I actually type the story, like in full on. And that's why I have to handwrite, because when I start to type, I get a very analytical brain like going on, and I judge everything. So if I was typing or writing like that, like actually writing the story, I would be too focused on fixing it. So I handwrite, so that way it's like when I sit down to type, it's a very clean, solid edit, and it's ready to go. So like I said, I can actually finish a book in 30 days if I wanted to. Sorry. I could actually finish a book if I wanted to in about 30 days, but it takes about 2 months because I kind of slow it down. But and then the cover art, my cover artist is a doll. Like, she's the best person in the whole world. She deserves a raise, but don't tell her that, because I need my covers to stay at a certain price. No, so she works in a week for me. Like, she'll jump, she's ready, she's constantly, she knows my next series before anybody else does. Like, she's already working on the next covers. So it's kind of like we have like a really strong relationship when we've had one for 2 years now. She's awesome. But awesome. Yes, when I have a book ready to go, I could release it that day if I wanted to, like, or the next day. So it's not really a huge time constraint. So what you'll see is a lot of people with rapid release stuff or whatever, like the challenges when it comes with that is they have an editor on standby. They have their cover already designed a year in advance. Like, and a lot of them stockpile books too. They wouldn't write. So, like you write a book, you do everything and you release it. No, what they would do is have 3 books ready to release like at once and then
Right.
building on that momentum. But yeah, challenges. Challenges are just kids, honestly. Like,
Yep.
no, I'm my kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom by day and an author by night is what I always say, because like they're my sole focus during the day, and I really only write during nap time or when they're in bed at night. So it's not like just. And my husband's also military, so it's like he'll be gone for like 3 months, and so it's like okay, now I'm like at home with kids. There's no time to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I can't think of any other challenges really.
And that's a good thing. I mean, you don't have to scrounge up challenges if there really aren't any. It's more out of curiosity because this is coming from someone who hasn't released more than 2 books in a year. And everybody has their own circumstances. Everyone has their own challenges. Like you said, quarantine, COVID, that stuff actually aided you in writing, which I think is amazing. I'm introverted, so in part it did help me as well.
Yeah.
Though I was working remotely already anyway. I'm a relatively recluse, so to speak. But kids, I can understand that they're not like set aside whether or not the kids themselves are challenging. Just needing to take care of other humans just takes time and brain power and bandwidth and whatnot, and that's okay. Just finding those times, like you said, nap time, nighttime. I get up early personally. I wake up at about 4:30 every morning. So that you're shaking your head. You must not be a morning person.
Oh God, no. I need sleep. My 2-year-old just started sleeping through the night about, I want to say 6 months ago. So I'm still catching up. Oh my God.
So, I know how that.
But did you say, were you in Idaho? Did I hear that or?
Yes, correct. So we live in Idaho, mainly because we homestead. So I have 9 goats and we have about 22 chickens right now, some cats as well to catch the mice. So yeah, when we're not doing homesteading chores, feeding animals, milking animals, and whatnot, I've got my full-time job and then the 5 kids. And so yeah, that's why I get up at 4:30 so that I can write.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. So what does your productivity look like per hour? Like, are you getting or do you get stuff? Or?
I don't. So I write somewhere between, like today I wrote about 3,000 words in an hour, though I don't handwrite, I type, which can be a little bit faster. So it's usually anywhere between on a not great day, it's about 1,500 words an hour, which those don't happen super often. Just if I'm overly tired or whatnot, I still write. But normally it's between 2,000 and 3,000 words in about an hour.
Okay. So, and then you get how many hours a day do you get in?
About 1 a day. Sometimes if I'm lucky, I can get an hour and a half, but it never really extends beyond that. I wake up at 4:30, but that doesn't mean my mind is ready to write. So I have from about 4:30 till 7 before we need to go take care of animals. So we've got a pretty big chunk, but I need to spend 30 minutes to an hour waking myself up significantly. And it does take that much time when you get up that early. So I read or, I'll clean my office or something, just kind of move around, wake myself up a little bit before I write.
Yeah, that's like I don't think well early in the morning, so I don't even try to write. I'm like nap time, nighttime. Like that's better for me.
I coincidentally, so nap time, I'm assuming sometime in the afternoon, probably 1-ish, 2-ish, right? That's actually a really good time for me to write as well. I just don't always get it because I'm working.
Yeah, no, and there's that. Thankfully, well, I mean, it kind of wasn't another option in our family, just because, like I said, active duty military, we're moving around constantly, we're doing it, so it was like, well, what are you gonna do? And so I ended up with 2 degrees, like when I got out, and I was like, okay, and then I got pregnant, and might as well, and so like the writing thing, I'm excited to see. One of the things, have you heard of 20 books to 50K?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so they're a Facebook group or whatever, but they did a Vegas event. They do a Vegas event yearly, like it's a big author event. So I actually went to that in November, and it was super eye-opening because I actually ended up meeting a lot of 6-figure authors, and like I somehow got invited to drinks with them. I don't know how that happened. I was out of my element. I was like, hey, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm gonna learn. Like seeing, they're devoting 8 hours a day, and I kind of that was my point, was I just needed to hit X amount of dollars to be able to devote 8 hours a day to this. Cause once my, youngest is in school, like I'm either going back to work or I have time. So I was like, if I
Mhm.
can just this, and I call it my hobby still, even though I know I'm making more than a lot of people who started out the same time as I did and stuff like that. Like it's still
Yep.
my hobby, right? But it will, like it's already, as long as I keep on track to what I need to do, I can see it still. And I tell everybody too, when you start out with this, don't expect to get rich overnight. It's a small business. Like you can
Mhm.
be in 2 to 3 years in a small business, like before you start seeing it turning a profit. That's how most small businesses work. Thankfully, I haven't been in the red ever because I'm very cheap, and everything I've ever earned has either gone back into it or like, I've never spent any more than I've earned. Like, but it's, like it's still, I'm still meeting all my goals to hit that deadline that I had, seen in the big overhanging picture of this career. So it's
That is
nice. But
awesome. That that it's in. I mean, it sounds like you have a lot to be proud of, but it's got to be very good to say I've not been in the red, because there are many, including myself, many indie
oh
authors that are like, yeah, I've spent a lot more than come even close to making.
no, oh no.
But I know it's a long game. Like you said, it's a small business. Treating it as the long game, it's just kind of an investment. You have, sounds like, editing skills, something that I'm terrible at English. I don't do English.
That's one of the things I always feel guilty about, because people like, and even like I like closer authors, like I said, who have been, kind of working with for 2 years or known for 2 years. They kind of get mad at me because they're like, well, Heather could edit her own books. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't, like, it's just the skill. I don't know. Like,
I mean, I feel no anger or jealousy. I just think that's amazing. Like that is what a great toolkit to take to the table when you're writing. I just recognize my own limitations. I wouldn't even trust myself to try. I couldn't even tell you how to use a comma for the life of me. So I just recognize that in myself. Like I can learn other languages. I was a linguistics major in college, so I love learning languages. I speak a couple Filipino languages fluently. Studied Chinese, Arabic, but I don't do English,
like
coincidentally.
we just don't like grammar is what it is.
I don't do grammar.
Well, you can, I mean, don't they have tools like Grammarly and stuff? I feel like I've used
Yeah,
that in college. Like,
I
I don't know.
use Pro Writing Aid. So I actually invested in Pro Writing Aid, and it does help significantly. It's not perfect, right? It's a system that does the best that it can. But I used Pro Writing Aid with my last book, and my editor got the manuscript, and she said it's the cleanest manuscript I've sent to her. There were still some issues, but yeah, it does clean up a lot of stuff.
One of my favorite things ever, by the way, and it's not even a trick, but I don't understand why more people don't do it, because I do it myself, is I actually have Word read aloud function,
Oh,
read my novel back to me, and you catch everything that way. Like you catch any misword, you catch every, like misspelling, anything. Like, well, I do, just because I'm like, oh, okay. Like, so it's just, I basically, as I'm editing,
smart.
I have back to me out loud, and you're really going to catch where you need to comma, you're going to catch like everything. Like, well, for me at least, I do. So
I might not catch comments, but I'll give that a try. I haven't done that. I have read it back to myself out loud
no,
as a part of my editing process, but I don't think it's as effective.
you need that automatic, very monotone voice
Yeah.
telling you exactly, and like, and you start to correct stuff too, because you're like, we got to make this sound prettier because this isn't good enough. Hey, it's like reading it back to you, like you want it to sound better, even though it's a computer or like electronic voice. Oh yeah, that word read aloud and we were not friends.
That's you have a love-hate relationship with it, because you don't want to have to listen to it, but you want to have to listen to it to catch all those things.
Just like TikTok. No.
Just like TikTok, exactly. Yeah, we could go on and on about TikTok and my sentiment toward the app, but that is a full other discussion for another day. I'm sure we could spend a lot of time on that.
Speaking of which, just another tip and trick, by the way, I actually ended up shadow banned a couple of weeks ago, which was fun. I didn't believe anybody when they said about shadow banning. I really didn't. I thought it was a joke. Like I was like, oh, yeah. So because what I had done was I was trying to promote. There was Natalie Kim, or I'm going to slaughter her last name, wanted to do a 12 days of author Christmas thing, and I was like, oh, that would be a cute TikTok like situation running through or whatever. And then so it shadow banned me or whatever. So basically it wouldn't show any videos of mine to anybody, like, and it wouldn't even do views. One thing I realized though, and I didn't, so I was like running through everything. TikTok is actually really good about, you can email them like you can find their email. So for authors that have ever had issues with TikTok, you can actually email them. You cannot do that to Facebook or Instagram to say, hey, like do something. And the other thing is, if you have not uninstalled your app and reinstalled it lately, you don't have the latest version and they don't show it to as many people. So for any authors listening that ever has a problem with TikTok, or for if you ever do too, uninstall your app and reinstall it for the latest version, and then they will start to show it to more people. I literally had like a 2019 version of apparently like on there.
Fascinating. I've never heard that before. I actually get shadow banned about once a week.
Really?
It lasts about 2 or 3 days, and then it'll be back on for about a day or two, and then it'll go off again for 2 to 3 days.
Uninstall it and reinstall it, because you might be experiencing bugs with like the latest versions. They had the newest version doesn't even show like your content at the bottom. It like does it in like a feed type thing now.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, I have to take a look at that. I don't know. I'll try that, because I'm willing to try anything at this point.
Well, no, I just learned it the other day. I was like, that is my one contribution. I'm going to jump on 20 books at some point and be like, listen, I have one contribution for TikTok. Like, I just figured this out. It's freaking mind blowing. Like,
but a momentous contribution. Let's just say
right?
that.
Let's hope so.
If it works, I'll give it a try. I won't hold your feet to the fire if it doesn't work.
I read Dystopian writer.
He'll just write a book about it. But great. And thank you again for joining. We're about out of time. Where can we find you and your books? Just more information about you.
Oh, goodness. I'm everywhere and I'm nowhere at all. I suck at my...
Okay.
I actually just... you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Heather Carson Author. All of my books are available on Amazon, free and Kindle Unlimited, or you can hit me up for some cool swag and signed copies, and I might give you a better deal than Amazon can. Screw the man.
Yep, I agree. I do the same thing. I'm all for cutting out the middleman where possible. So excellent. Thank you again. I hope you have an excellent week.
You too.